And a very good morning. It's a hump day of the week. It's a Wednesday. I'm very excited today. I'm going to a shearer. I have to look pretty, you see, for the Mount Kosciuszko people in the high country. By the way, we're on the Gold Coast, where it's mild, sort of warmish. Just imagine how I'm going to be when I hit the cold. Suggestion, if you have any suggestions, should I wear my Hawaiian shirts there? I don't think so. Okay, some of the news that's making news as I lose my voice around Australia. Thousands of Australians have reported an outage on the country's largest mobile network, of course, Telstra. Shoppers are ditching steaks for snags and burgers. Very high class there. I love my sausages, as surging livestock prices threaten to deepen the cost of living pressure at the retail checkout. I mean, what do you have? Sausages or lobster? Of course, sausages. Magnificent. That's just my humble. And also rissoles with gravy, mashed spuds, peas and beans. And the spuds cannot be under. Please note, those who cook this for a living, it cannot be under the rissole. It just doesn't work. And gravy can't go on the potato unless you put it on yourself. Anyway, this is Mike's cooking lesson for the day. Fire station builds that once averaged 29 a year, slow to just 2 after a government takeover, as the Allen government tried to gag CFA responses to the bushfire inquiry. Australia's wheat port code has been declared no longer fit for purpose, triggering a sweeping push for industry self-regulation almost 20 years in the making. Marie Yokoyama, a former reality TV star and Brizzy restaurateur, has warned Australian hospitality businesses are drowning in mountains of red tape and rising costs, revealing that micromanaged timesheets alone are costing up to $100,000 a year. Incredible, isn't it? And we move ahead. Weren't computers going to make it easier? No way, Jose. If you want to find out more about what's happening around the country, keep listening and watching us. X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, we're live. And also you can see replays after we're finished. This is the Country Telegraph. That's incredible. The Boree solar farm factory, it's terrible. I think again, decisions made by cap city people have got no consideration. And the cold hard fact is they don't care. You can protest till the cows come home, and hopefully they do. But you can protest for all you like. You might be 1 seat, 2 seats, but most of them are in the major cities, and that's what they're targeting. So we actually have to cut through the air, cut through it, get to the people that decide at the counter, do I buy that or don't I buy that? And we've got to teach them, and not teach them, show them that they should not be buying the garbage that's coming out of, for example, Chris Minns or Jacinta Allen. I think Victoria is aware of that, not because of just what's happening to those on the land, but in Victoria it's more those, or the CFMEU with the 15 billion and all the other corruption and the stench that's coming from the Labor Party, which is just a continuation of Dan Andrews in Victoria. And look what happened. I mean, they still got voted back in, even though it was Jacinta Allen. Oh, she'll be different. No, she was in the same boat. He had the right oar and she had the left oar. I presume it was an oar. So I think we have to cut through it, because otherwise, the good folk in the bush, your cactus, you're not going to do anything. You can't do much about it. You cannot do much about it at all. So we have to get to those major markets, and we need to do it. Whether it's renewables, which are destroying communities, again, it doesn't affect those in the cap city. Imagine if you said to them, around Glenferrie or Hawthorne, we're going to put some around the football ground there. We're going to plonk in 6 towers. I can tell you now it would stop. Same thing in Manly. Oh, we're going to put some wind turbines in Manly because there's a nice gentle breeze coming in every day. Nah, it wouldn't happen, would it? So I don't know how we're going to do it. We have to keep persisting, and here at the Country Telegraph, we will persist. We need to persist with the atrocities that are happening to our entire countries. If you look at the poor animals, those poor horses, the brumbies, they're going in the Kosciuszko National Park, and we found some information out, so we'll go through that in the next week or thereabouts, that it's already been predetermined what's going to happen, and those horses, I can tell you now, have got no chance at all. Same thing if you look at the Bogong High Plains. If you can find a horse there, I'll go he, as my dad used to say. And I'm quoting my dad a lot these days. I wonder why that would be. I know he's passed away. Maybe it's the ghost of Dennis Ryan has come back to haunt me. And that'd be terrifying. One thing is scarier would be the ghost of Mike Ryan coming back to haunt you. This is the Country Telegraph. Isn't it amazing what we have learnt? I mean, gone almost a full circle. We're going back to the past. But if you look at the past, I mean, it's sort of I suppose it's got the runs of the board, only a couple of million years it seems to have succeeded. And then we come in and try and change what is natural. It's like the immune system. We want to jab things in people's arms and stuff, but we actually have a natural immune system. You don't want to mess with that. It's like the environment. You don't want to mess with the Mother Nature or nature's, because someone picked me up and say Mother Nature, so on nature's immune system. You don't want to mess with that and see what's happened at the moment. We've got these bridge gluers who disguise themselves as environmentalists, but truly in my own humble opinion, a bunch of wackos. And speaking of wackos, look what's happening in New South Wales. I mean, the more you look at the Minns government, the more the Minns government is not looking after Australians. And she is. I mean, isn't it? I mean, you look at, again, today's society. Well, I disagree with that. You're racist. Get out, get out, get out of our country. I mean, give me a break. But that's what it is. What do they say? The one with the loudest voice, the squeaky door gets the most attention. So we have, we've got all sorts of versions of those bridge gluers. They glue themselves to the road to save the planet and really tick people off. I mean, we've got all versions of those, and look at the New South Wales government. You're racist. Give me a break. I mean, she's just an absolute. What can I say? Looks like God forgot something between the ears for her. Missed that one. Anyway, the other thing is because we actually with our huge resources here and our investigative powers that we have, we actually have, we filmed this. Now, this is with the Victorian government. Okay, so we filmed it. We were very sneaky. They don't know that we're there. It may look like it's staged. It's not. This is the real thing that happened in Victoria, and you'll see how much they care about us. And you know that's we didn't have our cameras, our resources. I mean, we would have collapsed, but it's true, isn't it? Isn't it true? Ever try to call council? I mean, we went through the experience with our bin, and I'm sure that at one stage they were going to call the SWAT squad. Don't talk to me that way. But you haven't picked up our bin. It's been there for 14 years. And it's breathing by itself anyway. That's council. That's the government for you. And I think we've gone down a really bad path. And I'm going to talk to a bloke who calls a spade a shovel very shortly. He's doing a great thing that we all should be involved with, saving our magnificent brumbies. We need to stop any more culling, not just this time. I mean, the other times. Chris Minns even said that they used to round them up. The National Parks and Wildlife Services, they know nothing. They used to round them up, push them into this pen, 20 at a time, and shoot them. I mean, but of course we got the RSPCA. No, we haven't. Getting a lot of nice comments, by the way. Thank you so much. People are actually writing songs. I'm going to play you one of these songs. It's just called Save the Brumbies. Incredible, and thank you so much for that. We'll keep playing that too. I think very shortly we're going to talk about a march that's happening on the weekend in Albury, I think it is, driving from Benalla. Somebody said, "Oh, that's a long way." Nah, not for us. I actually used to work in Shepparton, and we would drive to Albury. It's just a hop, skip, and a long jump. Talk about that in a second. He's looking very much Aussie too, Ross Tregonning. We'll be up in about 30 or 40 seconds. So don't keep calling me about the weather. I've just put it up for you. We'll do it every 30 minutes, I think, because it is important. If we can have a barbecue, wash the car, go for a walk, that sort of stuff. Go skiing, maybe. Now, Ross Tregonning has been on the land and had horses for over 60 years. Ross is one of the organisers of the March at Albury on 11 July. That's World Horse Day. We should be ashamed of ourselves. More on that in a second. We're celebrating the murder of the Brumbies. The march is being organised by those wishing to raise awareness among the general public of this terrible Brumby cull. It will be a great event for people to bring their horses to the march on World Horse Day. So I think we do need to get behind it. Our guest is Ross Tregonning. Ross, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike.
First of all, I mean, I have an idea what you will say, but your thoughts on this terrible, terrible atrocity on our heritage horses called the Brumbies.
Yes, it's appalling how they are being treated at the moment. Considering the horses have been in the Kosciuszko National Park for well over 150 years, and there was an act passed in Parliament a couple of years ago classing them as heritage, and it's been repelled, and it's just an out-and-out slaughter of our Brumbies happening at the moment. Yeah, not happy at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested here because they've taken the control from the locals, and you've got these people. You're from the bush. I'm from the bush. Actually, I know Benalla quite well, and very well because I used to I work at 3SR in Shepparton. So I know the area well. We know what we think about people with big smoke. They make decisions to impact those around them. But when it comes to the bush, they really have no idea. And we're not trying to be mean or nasty. They may have degrees. They may have all sorts of bits of paper to say that they're an expert on a particular subject. But really, the experts are the ones that they're ignoring. How do we right that wrong?
It's probably up to us to vote them out, show them what they're actually doing, and show them how inhumanely they're culling these animals. Like, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. And I think the bush or the park should be given back to the people that know how to manage it. I've ridden a lot of national parks and ridden into Wonnangata Station, which is the most remote cattle station in the world when it was operational. And you've really got to fight your way through blackberries, and there's weeds, there's all sorts of... it's just gone feral again. Like, it's not good. And, you know, in the early 1970s, you could ride along those tracks and there were no blackberries or anything like that when it was managed properly by people who knew how to manage it. But like I say, it's just gone feral at the moment, and they don't have resources. They don't know what they're doing. So let the locals manage it, and they're the ones that know how to manage it.
I'm just appalled that the locals, I mean, who have grown up with these, and according to Chris Minns, the culling of horses have been happening for quite a while, and everyone's focused on stopping this cull. We need to stop it forever. The effect of what's happening now, and I suppose the renewed interest from some of the media, how's that impacting on the locals? The mental health must be taking a real battering at the moment.
Yeah, totally agree, Mike. I, for one, struggle to sleep at night. You wake up with helicopters buzzing in your head and guns going off, and, visions of horses being shot, up to 10, 15 times, trying to get up off the ground and walk, and mares being shot dead with their foals standing there waiting for them to get up. Is playing on a lot of people's minds, and especially mine. Like I said, I've had horses for over 60 years, and you just don't treat those animals, or any animal for that matter, like that. It's quite disturbing and distressing, to say the least.
Yeah, I have. I also, because I was like most of the others, not really, not thought about it, but you just didn't hear about it, so you didn't think that this cruelty was happening, and because of the programming that we're doing, which we thought would be a lot less energetic, I would probably use, than what we used to do. We've actually walked into a veritable pit of snakes, not just with the horses, but the entire, on the land. It's being attacked by governments, whether federal, state, or local. And I find that this is it really makes, I have very bad nights of sleep. And you're right, I saw one of those videos too, the poor horse that was shot, and it was thinking, what's happening? Why am I being shot? Anyway, it died a very slow death. And just the thought of it, I sort of well up. How do we, because at the moment, and I always go on, and I've been talking about it today, that to make change, we have to impact the places where it counts for government. And at the moment, the bush, it might get 20 seats or something, but really it's in the major cities that they have all those seats. So if they, with the help of the, say, Invasive Species Council, they send out the propaganda to say that the horses are terrible, that this is terrible, that's terrible, we know about the bush, and they don't. And I refer, by the way, to the ISC as the former bridge gluers, because that's the sort of people that they are. They would glue themselves to roads and stuff. And they have this power at the moment, which I find highly distasteful. How do we get through? Because you're I mean, you and I and others can't keep going through these sleepless nights, and I can't see it ending. How do we get through to those that matter in making decisions? Not those that matter, but those that can make those decisions. Because I don't know how that can happen unless we can shock people and put it onto legacy media or mainstream media like 9, 10, 7 and 2 and that sort of stuff. I don't know how we're going to do it. How do we hit the head of the people that can make decisions? How do we do that?
I think we've really got to make a noise and be heard, and that's one of the reasons why we're having this awareness ride march down the main street of Albury on Saturday. We've got to get our voices out there louder and stronger, and show people the atrocities of what's actually going on. You know, like I'm appalled at the RSPCA, to be quite frank. Like they're just toothless tigers. They really aren't puppets to the government. We've really got to show people the inhumane way that our brumbies are being treated. Mike, I don't like politics or hypocrites, and they're the reasons why. They are. They're just hypocritical at the moment. You can drive half an hour out of Albury, and into Langata they've got a big statue of Sandy the war horse, the only horse to return from the war, and then you go another 100 k's as the crow flies, and they're shooting our brumbies out of the sky. Now, if that's not hypocritical, I'll go he. We've got to make a noise about it. We've got to make people aware of what actually is going on.
At World Horse Day, it's so hypocritical. First of all, the anomaly is that we're celebrating the horse, but we're still shooting them. It's not just here in this country; it's also in other countries too. But we're running out of our brumbies, and they've had figures like, there's 16,000, there's 18,000. Peter Cochrane, who knows the area very well, suggests that it's around about 800. And if they go on the current killing spree, because it is the season to kill, we're going to get down to a very, very low number, and very, very similar to the Bogong High Plains, where there are no horses. The Victorian government, and I'm an ex-Victorian, and I'd never heard of it, what they were doing. And I think the propaganda and the lack of information coming out is what is their weapon and our weapon of destruction.
That's right. And like the figures that they're coming up with, it's 16,000 horses at the moment. That's why they're culling them. Then you get other figures, people saying, we've got 700-800 left. This is what we need, an independent body to actually count numbers and see where we're at. And I'm not saying that the brumbies should not be culled or shot or anything like that. We've got to have a proper management and numbers that the national park can sustain, and everything can live in harmony. Like they've been there since the 1830s, and you got that Jack Goff talking about the corroboree frog. Well, if the horses are causing that much damage, I would have stomped these frogs years and years ago to existence. Their argument just doesn't stand up at all. Not at all.
No, I totally agree. And yet we have the Snowy 2.0, which is not at all doing any damage to the environment. As I say that, my nose got longer, so I shall retract that. But it actually has the Hippocratic oath. That's
exactly. Yeah.
Tell me about your thoughts on that.
Well, to be perfectly honest, look, what you just said then and what I said previous about being hypocrites, there we go. There you have it. It's fine to swathe this big path through the national park to justify the human's endless needs, and on the other hand, you can't have a brumby running around in the bush. That hydro scheme, I think the killing of the brumbies has taken the focus off what they're doing with that hydro scheme. People are sort of looking at the Brumbies and seeing how much damage they're doing, but they're not showing what the government's doing by doing this hydro too.
I agree. Tell me now. Let's get, because we are going to run out of time, and you and I can sit and whinge for a week. But and
Yeah.
I do that well. I mean, I was trained by my father, and he taught me very well. Unfortunately, I do it too well, apparently. But we do need to do a lot. We do need to ensure that this stops immediately. Can you just tell me what we can expect on at the march, and what else is happening?
On Saturday, like we said, it's to coincide with World Horse Day, and why we picked that day was, the horse has been a fabulous instrument in forging this great nation of ours. Well, it was great for 200 years. So we go on a march and walk. You can ride your scooters, you can bring your car, you can bring your kids, whatever. We're going to go up and down Dean Street Saturday, leaving at the Smollett Street end of Dean Street, and just let people know what is actually going on with this terrible injustice to the Brumby. Yep.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be a nice day, but I'm just I was trying to find some figures here. I can't seem to find it, but we do need to do a lot more for the for what's happening, and I don't know if it will be quick or long. I think I'd like to at the when I head to the high country. I'm just looking for something at the moment. When I head to the high country, I would like to be able to bring to the attention of Australia that these horses are magnificent. How intelligent are they?
Oh, like I said, Mike, I've had horses for over 60 years, and I acquired a Brumby 2 years ago, and she is possibly the smartest, kindest, most beautiful natured horse I think I've ever had in my life. Yeah, yeah, I'll be honest. So, yeah, I wish I'd have had one years and years and years ago, because they're just a beautiful, beautiful animal. You cannot get a better horse for a kid. Yeah, they're just a marvellous animal, and just to see them, being shot and staggering around the bush for a few days to die, that just makes me sick and does my head in. There's one thing I'd like to ask that Penny Sharp and Mins and Jack Goff, and like I said, I'm dirty on the RSPCA. If they got to euthanize one of their animals, I would like them to bring their animal to me, and I will shoot it in the guts, and they can take it home, and I'll just say, well, it'll die in 3 or 4 days, it'll be right. And imagine their response to that.
Yeah, but you will never see them anyway. They're not going to go down there. They're not. And really, as I said at the start, I mean, even though it's gaining some traction at the moment, we need to keep going. Um, the votes don't. There's not enough people there to vote them in or out of power, really, and they're targeting the major markets and the propaganda from the ISC and others, collectively others, those bridge gluers. I think for the cap city, the major markets, they're swallowing the Kool-Aid, as they would say. If somebody wanted to find out more, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Somebody wants to find out more about the march. How do they do that?
Yes, we've got a Facebook page. So yeah, they can either look me up, or Margie Young. She's sort of the propaganda person on Facebook, and we'll point anyone in the right direction. There's plenty of Brumby groups there with our information of what's happening on the weekend.
Ross, it's been a real pleasure. I wish you all the best. And just think, I'm heading from the Gold Coast to the high country. I've asked people whether I should take my Hawaiian shirts. I probably shouldn't, unless they're very thick. It's going to be pretty cold, isn't it?
It's a bit cold this morning down here, Mike, but
Indeed.
you're more than welcome to join in the awareness march on the weekend. My
I
word,
think so.
yeah.
And we need to not to be hypocrites, because it's celebrating the horse, not shooting the bloody thing.
Yeah.
Ross, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph. It's all happening in New South Wales, also all happening in Victoria. Wrongs can't be righted when governments seek to avoid a truthful examination of its administrative failures. There's so many of those. The Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry into the devastating 2026 summer fires has heard damning evidence of mismanagement and leadership failure. Now, the Allen government is accused of forcing the Country Fire Authority to cut back or retract its critical submissions detailing lack of funding, cost blowout, staff shortages, which is stuffed, and delayed station builds. Well, I'll be. Now, John Hooter Houston is president of the CFA Volunteers Group and the #1 selling artist on YouTube. I made that part up. John is also captain of Grasmere Brigade D05 in Warrnambool and also a business owner. John, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Mike. Great to
Are
be
you
here.
really the #1 artist on YouTube?
Yeah, you're very kind to me, mate. Thank you.
No, I'm not kind. I'm just full of it, as they say. Tell me, with regards to the Victorian government, I've asked you this before. Before we get into, this truly, it's very scandalous. Out of a rating of 10, what would you give Jacinta Allen?
I'm allowed to do minuses because I think that's probably where she's at the moment. It's getting worse. I mean, the level of corruption, the mismanagement, they just don't seem to care about the general Victorian community. And yeah, she's a real low on my list.
She is indeed. The inquiry. Tell us about the inquiry. It just didn't happen overnight, but she would like to have eradicated it overnight.
Yeah, so it was brought in, and they probably tried to push back on it at the start. They didn't want to have it. There was a vote, an upper house vote, and they basically want to shut it down. But I think in the end we had all the other independents and parties were 100% behind it, so they had to concede. So then they tried to control the narrative about what was accessible and what they could work with and not. But I think it's blown up in their face, as we can see.
What do you think's going to happen? Because they try to nobble you, and I'm just trying to read between the legacy media and all the reports. The nobbling seemed not to have worked. Why were they trying to nobble what you were saying? And I think they were saying it needs to be kept within house because it's not fit for human consumption, something like that.
Yeah, well, they just don't want anyone to know what's going on, basically, and that's probably pretty much what a corrupt government does. They try to control the narrative and only let certain people know what's going on, and don't want the general public to know what's going on. So, this is happening within our fire services. What's happening within other services as well. So, it goes beyond this, but we're concerned with the fire service at the moment, and it's not right.
No, it's not. Some of the major issues that have been brought up. Could you just illuminate those for us?
So the aging tanker fleet that there's probably half of our primary tankers are over 20 years of age. And I think the average age is nearly 20 years, pushing that now. For the primary tankers, whereas for brigade-owned tankers, that's around 11 or 12, I think. So, stations is another issue. Obviously, scrapping of the tax is an absolute major issue, and replacing with a fair and proper funding that's going to do the right things for the right people and create a better fire service for all. And safety is another one that's been very important. We want our stations and our volunteers are just not safe workplaces to be in. So, that's another issue that we need to address as well.
We had one of your partners in arms the other day talking about there are cancer concerns, and that the government, even though they're not admitting liability, there is some support. Can you just fill me? Because I think that's because it's used with the retardants and then with the ventilation within the actual fire station itself and so forth. Tell me more about those concerns, because if you're looking at something that is going to hurt the community, which is the CFA, which looks after the community, which is the CFA. Tell me more about these concerns when it comes to the cancer.
Yeah, well, so a lot of our volunteers, we're all exposed to diesel fumes and stuff like that. So that's and then when you're in a confined space in a station where your truck's warming up, that's compounded to effect. If you're out in the open, it dissipates a lot quicker and stuff like that. So that's the issues there. You've got foams, you've got retardants, but you've also got carcinogens that come off the flames or off the fire ground. So like houses with older paint, asbestos stuff like that. I know that's diminishing, but it's still a real issue. You might have warehouses, factories, things like that. We don't know what's in them. There is even concerns about, bushfires being giving people some cancers. So, like it's a whole broad range of things. And we just need to have the correct tools to do the job. If it's proper masking, that's what we need. If it's proper firefighting equipment, that's what we need. If it's better tankers, that's what we need. Our stations need to have proper ventilation. Have a click-on thing that goes on the exhaust pipe and it's extracted to the outside or filtered and extracted to the outside. When we come back from a fire, we should be able to decontaminate in a separate room and have a shower and take off our clothes and they're washed and ready to go next time. Just so many of these things that are probably pretty common knowledge. Our volunteers, unfortunately, don't get that the same level of care and respect.
Yeah, and also you've got the your automobiles. I'm not really sure if you call them automobiles. I mean, it's a bit like a T model Ford. It was okay when you got it, but it certainly is not meant to last all the time it has. Have you seen any developments on the front of replacing vehicles that are that have been made recently instead of those that are many hundreds of years old?
Um, Look, there's plenty of talk of it, but we're actually not seeing it. There is some coming in, but it's a slow trickle. And what people don't realise is that they're actually buying back the brigade-owned tankers before they reach their expiry date of 20 years, refurbishing them, and then putting them out as primary tankers. So our primary tanker age is just going to go through the roof. And if they're deemed not fit for brigade to own them, why are they then being refurbished and put back in as primary tankers? A primary tanker is your main tanker. Um, the government have dropped the ball on this right from the start. They were told to buy. There was going to be a shortage of medium and heavy tankers, and they haven't bought up the stock when it was available, and now they're caught with their pants down. But unfortunately, it's not them that cop the brunt; it's the volunteers. They're the ones that are suffering because they're the ones that their safety's at risk.
Now, there's an election not very far away. I see that the LNP have promised to properly fund frontline CFA operations and provide the necessary resources and infrastructure for volunteer brigades across Victoria. Um, your honest opinion here is that election speak or is it sincere?
No, it's just been they're just trying to hoodwink the general public into saying that they're doing everything they can. I think the CFA as it was released in that first initial report, there was 330 odd million asked for stations and tankers and stuff like that, and they got 118 million over a period of time. That just goes to show that if we're the best funded in the world, so to speak, then why aren't we getting the services that we got? Why have we got tankers that are 39 years old or 38 years old? It's just crap basically. And if you keep spinning crap, well, people are going to call you out, and that's what's happening.
And what about the opposition? Because they've also promised very similar. What do you think will happen with that? Are they being sincere?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think they've got a little bit of passion. They've got a bit of history that they do want to work with us. When generally under the Liberal governments, we've had more tankers and better station upgrades. But they need to come true with the goods as well. It's fine to say we're going to give you this and we're going to give you that, but when you get in power, to say, well, there's no money. So we'll be keeping the pressure on them. But I'm quietly confident, but it's not across the line yet that we're going to get close to what we need. But it is going to take time. We need to realise that it's not going to be um, a 6-month fix or whatever. They have to hit the ground running, and work their butts off, but they also need to have a plan before they go in. And we'd really love to see what that plan is, so that we can see that it's going to be a positive thing. If not, we have to advocate to the federal government or whatever to try and pick up the shortfall if there is any.
Maybe you should encourage them to build a nice little hut or take a caravan to a spot that looks pretty dicey, and then ask them to explain the value of the CFA when these great flames are heading towards them, and the nice bottle of wine and things like that, and also the record collection of your songs. They would then, they would then appreciate the CFA. If somebody wants to find out more about you, besides on what record label? Sorry, besides your singing or not singing, your songwriting prowess, how do they do that?
Yeah, look us up on Facebook, CFA Volunteers Group. We've also got a web page as well, but the Facebook's the best way to go, and it highlights the things that we're advocating for and where we're at, and it's really important to for everyone to get behind it, share what's going on, but really call into your local CFA and talk to them and say what are your concerns, and then get into the government about it, and also the potential blokes that are going to put their hand up to go into government next time, talk to them as well and then say that this is not right. We need a better fire service, because at the end of the day, all Victorians are paying for this fire service and they're not getting what they're paying for.
And when do you go on tour, by the way?
Yeah, we'll take the fire trucks around after the election, hopefully.
You. I mean, I would picture this because I haven't seen you perform, and you haven't performed at all. Maybe like a raw egg at times, but I picture you as a cross between probably Tom Jones and Willie Nelson. Would that be about right?
Yeah, I don't know, mate. I was thinking more Jimmy Barnes and
No, no, no. I think Tom Jones, even here's an old one, Engelbert Humperdinck. What a great name that is. But I mean, it could be you could be a combination of three and a bit of laid back, say jazz, blues, and whatever with the Willie Nelson country stuff. But I do actually. I think your songwriting is very good, and I think it does It's a great cause for the CFA, and it certainly must be. I mean, you must have many, many fans now that when you go out there, you're a bit like those Hollywood firefighters. They go, "Oh, John Huston, wow, he can sing me a song." John, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and we'll keep this up because I think we need to look after the CFA. I think they are such an important, not only for Victoria as a whole, but they're an important part of the community, and communities are under enormous pressure at the moment, whether it's state, federal, or even local government, and we need to look after them all. John Huston, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with your next album. This is the Country Telegraph. And we must do that because they are such an important part of our history and so important to the future. Now, if you're trying to get through on your phone to call people when you're with Telstra, thousands of Australians have reported an outage with Telstra, which is the country's largest mobile network. Shoppers are ditching steaks for snags and burgers, sausages and burgers, as surging livestock prices threaten to deepen the cost of living pressure at the retail checkout. And nothing wrong with that, by the way. A sausage, you cut it up. This is my cooking tip for the hour. Cut it up into little bits. You put it with some curry stuff you buy at the supermarket, and have some mashed spuds or some rice, and there you have your curry using snags. Probably beef I would use too. That's just my suggestion. For more information, something like that. Fire station builds that once averaged 29 a year slow to just 2 after a government takeover, as the Allen government tried to gag CFA responses to a bushfire inquiry. Australia's wheat port code has been declared no longer fit for purpose, triggering a sweeping push for industry self-regulation almost 20 years in the making. And Marie Yokoyama, a former reality TV star and Brisbane restaurateur, has warned Aussie hospitality businesses are drowning in mountains of red tape and rising cost, revealing that micromanaged timesheets alone are costing up to $100,000 per year. Incredible. It's got to stop somewhere. We'll talk about that with our next guest, Ann Norder, because it's atrocious what's happening to small business. And give it a couple of years, I don't know how they're going to stay in business or how we're going to afford to be able to go out to a restaurant. If you want to find out more, go to Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. I think there's an issue with X at the moment. And you can also watch the replays on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube and X, because we are live here at the Country Telegraph. And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. It's just 10 after 8 at the moment on the eastern seaboard. The environment for small business is getting harder and harder. Why is that? Our next guest will give us her views about the current business and political climate and how new policies will impact small business and her members. Ann Norder founded the Small Business Association of Australia in 2010 and commenced operating in 2011. Anne has been an employer and employee. As an employee, she worked in the Women's Royal Australian Air Force, worked on air for Channel 6 Mackay and Channel 7 Rockhampton, and Qantas for 10 years, not as a pilot, but a very important part of Qantas. As founder and CEO of Small Business Association, her core objectives are to be the real voice of small business, minimise the rate of failure in small business, and to promote world's best practice in business. Ann Norder, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, how are you, Mike?
Good, thank you. How tough is it at the moment to be in business? And I'm looking at just $100,000 from one restaurant to administer some of the cost. It's just horrendous, isn't it?
We are in overload with regulation. Um, Good regulation is a great thing, but we have a lot of bad regulation that does nothing for small businesses. And small businesses are all lumped into the same category as a big business when it comes to creating policy. So it's a it's a tough environment because there's no comparison between, say, an employer who has 2 or 3 staff and a BHP, for example. But that's how small businesses are treated in this country.
Yeah, I think it's appalling. I'm just trying to find a clip. If I'll just give me a half a sec, because I want to bring this clip up. I want to play this to you. And I want to get your thoughts because, I mean, the Victorian government obviously is in desperation mode and they've got this work from home. I'll call it garbage because it is. And I don't see how business will survive. I'll just play you this if you wouldn't mind, Anne,
Yep.
and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So, and we have the work from home, and I understand partially why, especially the people that like to work from home because of what COVID did to people's mindset. It really is very unrealistic, isn't it?
Well, let's put this into perspective. And can I just rattle off a few stats, Mike?
Hmm.
Victoria's population is just over 7 million. There's 718,000 small businesses in Victoria. That's micro and small, that's 20 and under employees. 97% of businesses in Victoria are small businesses. They are the single largest employer in the private sector. The public service employs around 400,000, that's police, teachers, etc. And government departments themselves about 58,000. Now, this is not law yet, so things can change. And if it becomes law, it's for businesses who employ 15 employees and over on the 1st of September, and for small businesses next year, 1st of July 2027, that's under 15 employees. Now, at the moment, the stats show that 8%, that's 38% of the workforce in Victoria already does a combination of working from home and going into the office. And this only applies to those businesses where workers can work from home. So if the job cannot be done at home, it just won't apply. So we've got to get this into perspective. And it's also up to the employer to refuse the request to work from home if and when it becomes law. But then, of course, the employee can go then and try to get conciliation and see whether they could, win out. So it's not all just one thing where where the employer must allow employees to work from home a minimum of 2 days per week. It will be reasonably flexible. But you are right, we have got far too much regulation. The people that put their money, their finances into business, which are small business owners, they have very little say in how to run their business. That's a fact of life. It's a very, very unfair, it's a stupid situation. And I always liken it to the people who make the rules, they have never run a small business. They don't risk anything. It's all very well to say, we want, we want, we want. And they don't make anything.
And it also seems like the Allen government, which is followed the communist regime of Dan. Anyway, there's another story. But they love dividing, divide and conquer. And to me, the push for the work from home, and you see the passion in Jacinta Allen's eyes, it's very serious. We're going to make sure we look after everybody, all those poor people having to be paid and to do a day's work.
Yeah.
We're going to look after them. It almost creates a me and them scenario, doesn't it, or atmosphere?
It does, and I thought we had gotten over that. And that attitude is alive and well today. And that's not a good thing. So the thing, and you will find that most small business owners already pay, for example, their staff above award wages. They give great conditions, all that sort of thing. They have to in order to keep them. So this business workers are very, very important, as we know, because without workers we can't run a business. But you've also got to look at the business owner as well. Where do they stand in all of this? They must have some say in how they run their business and what they want to do.
Tell me, I'm just, somebody said we are in a recession. I would probably think so, or close to it. And I think it will probably get worse before it gets better. How do we make small business, which is the engine room of most countries, how do we fix and make it more appealing and more successful? Because if a business goes under, people go, oh, well, didn't know how to do it, which is probably entirely wrong. Maybe right sometimes, but entirely wrong. How do we make it something that people want to be part of instead of something that people seem to be wanting to get rid of?
What we have done wrong in this country always, it's how we create policy. That's where we start. That's the root cause of a lot of our problems. Also, the principal cause of red tape, for example, is poorly created policies. And that's what we need to start understanding, and we need to start drafting policy that reflects small business. How will this policy affect a small business? We also need a single definition of a small business. We've got zillions of definitions. I mean, how can you create a policy when you've got zillions of definitions? It's stupid. So we created the Small Business Charter of Australia. It has the 10 pillars. This goes right back to when we first launched it in 2017, so going back 9 years ago. And this has done the rounds of all major stakeholders, etc., for years, bearing in mind that the pandemic did put a stop to things being implemented. But since 2024, the Charter is starting to gain traction. And it's a question of making politicians understand and policymakers understand that you have to create the right policy for a small business to reflect its size and what they need at their different stages of growth. And until we do that, we can do band-aid solutions here, there and everywhere, which they do at the moment, but it's not going to solve it. It doesn't fix the core problem. And just think of it this way: if you had a house and you're getting lots and lots and lots of cracks in it, what do? Do you keep patching it up, or do you investigate and see what's causing those cracks? That applies to small business, the same thing. So it's all about policy. Our housing policy, if we have a good housing policy, it fixes a lot of problems, but we do policy in isolation, and that just doesn't work. You must combine all the moving parts that reflect that particular policy, and that can also apply to the 3 tiers of government, and it can be done. Others do it around the world. We should be able to do it, but we don't. We have band-aid solutions, a quick fix it here, a nip and a tuck there, and we might ease up a bit of paperwork here and there, and that's about it. Well, that's not good, and we are paying the price for that now. Plus, you've also got the high cost of doing business. Very, very few people talk about it. There is the high cost of living, but there's the high cost of doing business. And when your turnover is decreasing, which it is for a lot of businesses, what do you do? Because if you go bust, it also affects not only you, but your family, your community. It could also send another small business broke if you owe them money and you can't pay them. So we have to look after our small businesses, because we keep talking about it's the engine of the economy, but that's where it stops. It's just lip service.
Yeah, we focus a lot on the regional, rural, and outback Australia, and it's obvious that those on the land are under enormous pressure and attacked by government because of their ideological policies, which is very, very sad, because the farmer is the guy on the land and the communities are the ones that are suffering, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of impact unless at the supermarket, but it doesn't make a whole lot of impact in the major markets such as Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, and so forth. How do we get the politicians to actually focus more on small business, instead of thinking, well, what we're going to do is go to the employee and say, we're going to look after you, instead of saying to the employer, that being generally small business, that we're going to look after you? How do we get through to those politicians? And the Victorian election coming up, do you see any positive change coming from one, if the ALP do get back into power, or secondly, the LNP in Victoria, if they get into power, how will things change? Do you see it being a little more even and more encouraging to be in small business?
Well, first of all, it's education. We have to change that mindset. That's tough. It takes time. But we do advocate, and we advocate very, very well in that particular area. Our main goal, besides other things, it's to change the way we create policy. If we can do that, we solve heaps and heaps of issues there. That's the most important single issue. And you will find other countries around the world are doing enormous things for their small business owners, because there's competition globally, all that sort of thing. Instead, in Australia, we seem to be lumbering our small businesses with more and more regulation. We're making it become harder and harder. And you will find it's just simply, business owners will tell you it's just simply getting too hard. That's a bad, bad thing. So it's advocacy. We've got to keep pushing the media, getting messages out through channels like yourself, Mike. We need to advocate to politicians, and hopefully we will get the message through. It takes a while. That's the worst thing. But we are getting traction regarding the Charter, because the Charter applies to all 3 tier levels of government. And we have got a number of rungs on the board which has been implemented, but there's a long way to go yet. And you'll find probably the biggest culprits are possibly councils, local councils, when it comes to red tape. Rather than the Commonwealth has to a degree, states to another degree, but you'll probably find the councils are the biggest culprits when it comes to all these rules and regulations.
What would that be? I mean, out of all the political layers, they're the ones who are supposedly in touch a lot more than the other political layers are. So you think they would understand, or is their job to make your life as miserable as possible?
I don't know whether they want to make it miserable, but
they're doing it.
They probably do, anyhow. What I feel is they don't understand. If you've never run a small business, how can you know? You think, what's all the fuss about? But when you get in and run a small business, not for 5 minutes, or walk past a small business, But when you run a small business for decades and you know the ups and downs and how things are changing, then you will understand what it's all about. But I think there's a lack of understanding more than anything else. That's what I have found.
Yeah, it's somebody said to me, it's a by the way a joke. How do you get into well, actually probably true. How do you get into small business? And they said start off with a big one. Um, and sometimes I think that's true. I think though, if the bigger you are, the more resources you have. If you're a smaller business and it's yourself and a couple of others, the resources that you have go into running that business and not looking for ways to minimise uh, requirements. I would say. I'm not.
But I'll tell you something shocking, shocking news that a lot of people aren't aware of. Small businesses are made up of three sizes in Australia. That's micro, small, and medium. And that occurred around the 1990s, so not that long ago. The ABS created those categories. But what governments failed to do was to create policy to reflect those categories. So that's never happened. It's that one cap fits all mentality. So the thing about it is, in Australia, you've got approximately 2.7 million actively trading small businesses. Out of that lot, around 1.8 million or thereabouts don't employ anybody. And the rest, which is around a million or just under a million, they employ staff. So the message is here means that our small businesses are very, very small. They are weak generally financially. The ATO figures, and I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I have got them on file, of what the average small business owner takes home as a pay or turns over is an absolute shocker. You wouldn't believe it. And this notion that they're all rolling around in millions of dollars, that's a real furphy, believe me. So the thing about it is we have to get very, very serious. We need to allow people to create wealth. Small business owners, family businesses, individuals. We don't do that in Australia. Every time somebody earns a dollar, somebody is trying to take it off you. I mean, that's a fact of life. We get taxed from the time we put a dollar in, we take a dollar out, all that sort of thing. We don't allow, unlike some other countries, for people to create their wealth, which is good in the long run. And that's a criticism.
It's incredible. We could talk for hours. Actually, we have in the past spoken for hours. Look, Anne, we have run out of time, but if somebody wants to find out more, have a conversation with you, become part of your organisation, and you are right up the very front. You're in the ditches, as they would say, and thank you, by the way, because you are very important in the organisation and your experience. If somebody wants to find out more about the Small Business Association of Australia and yourself, how do they do that?
Well, they can go to our website, which is smallbusinessassociation.com.au, and there's a contact number in there.
Good on you. Now you're ex-Victorian, aren't you?
No.
Aren't you? I was going to ask.
We are Australia-wide, including Victoria, very much so.
Well, then you must follow a footy side in Melbourne or in Victoria, Australia.
What was that?
Do you follow a football side with the AFL?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. I'd be the worst person in the world when it comes to sport.
Oh my goodness! Look, you are now an anointed and honorary member of St Kilda.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime.
If you find out our track record, you'll rescind that, let me tell you. Anne Norton, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And your insight is truly second to none.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is the Country Telegraph. Absolutely love that. I mean, and the rural community, those are the land. By the way, I did say rural properly. It took me about 40 years to say rural properly. Terrible. But they are under enormous pressure. And we do need to ease off them because the suicide rates from those in the land is very, very alarming. Because we always talk about communities, and one of the great communities in New South Wales and also throughout Australia is the Walker community. And they've been threatened, cajoled, everything by the New South Wales and Australian governments to go full steam ahead on those renewables. There goes 40 birds and your sanity. The Walker Declaration is just a group of them got together, and they said what most people on the land are thinking or should be thinking. Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. We've been banging on about the plight of the Brumby, especially in the Kosciuszko National Park. The New South Wales Parks and Wildlife have been part of the cull and organising the cull of the part of it, not organised by the New South Wales with the Invasive Species Council. They're egging them on, quick, haven't got a bridge to glue ourselves to, so let's push the government. Of course, under Penny Sharp in New South Wales, it's all full steam ahead and out with those Gatling guns. And the Gatling gun is that old one they used to use in the movies. You go like that. That's what I'm referring to. Always shown in most black and white movies. I'm not that old. Stop it. But we've been talking about the horses. Now, I was reading yesterday that Natural England in the UK says the Dartmoor hill ponies, which have been there for thousands of years, will not be culled at all. There'll be no culling at all. So fingers crossed on that one. In Australia, we have this terrible culling at the moment. And in the US, terrible, terrible things happening to horses. The world collectively is under attack from these, basically they're bridge gluers. They glue themselves to the road, and they're controlling which direction we're going into, which is just terrible. I'm going to play this. This is from the US. It's called The Lost Horse. And we should too. We owe them a great, great amount of gratitude and love. So we need to look after them. And to think otherwise, get on the boat and piss off. That's what I reckon. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say boat. Look, we often go on about, we do all the time, that things are changing. The land is, how we looked after it is changing. It really is. My dad used to use Roundup and what else, all the other uglies, just because he was told by the Department of Agriculture in Victoria that this is what you need to make your products grow better. it's funny how we've gone right around now that we're doing things that are good for the soil instead of attacking it. David Lewis Mackay is co-founder and director of Smart Soil. David, thank you for joining us. Tell me, do you find it really interesting that we've done the full circle just about that we are? Because if you look at the history of the planet, it's been doing a particular way for many millions of years. And then the last 100 years or 40 years, maybe 50, I grew up in Mildura, and we were encouraged to throw everything on it except the kitchen sink. Tell us why we are changing, and it's actually getting faster. Why are we changing now and going back to more natural methods?
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us back on, mate. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to observe that we are going full circle, and about bloody time too. I think the writing's been on the wall for a couple of years now. If you just look around and see the state of our land, and it's nothing new. We've been through it before. We've had the dust storms and the floods way back when. So if we didn't get the idea then it's nature's just going to keep knocking on our door saying, well, we need to change this. And I think it's really exciting that some farmers are changing and are going into a more nature-based approach, which is not only producing better outcomes for the land, but it's also producing higher quality food, forage and fibre as well. So it's a win-win-win in my opinion. And hopefully putting a few extra bucks in the back pocket of the farmer too.
Oh yeah, that's right. And it's you start to become part of it instead of just. I mean, it's in music they say you become part of the song, and that's the sign of a good musician and the sign of a good farmer. I mean, they're all good farmers, but those that become part of the land become one. They're the ones that I think we're all going towards that. They're the ones that I think really appreciate that what we did once wasn't so great, and what we did before that once was much, much better. Tell me about Regen Ag. What actually is it?
So Regen Ag is essentially leaving the land that we're farming and producing an income from in a better state than we found it. So we're working with the natural system instead of in a more conventional approach. We're out there fighting everything all day. We go out and we go, what do I need to go to war with today? Instead, it's actually taking a minute to stop and listen and look at what your land actually needs and what it's trying to tell you, and then interacting with it in a way that actually, pushes that natural system along and actually engages with that natural system to work with the hydrology and the fertility of our natural landscape. So some of the principles that we sort of stick by in Regen Ag are keeping the soil covered all the time. So we touched a little bit on armour in the last episode. So keeping the soil covered, so armour on top of our soil. We want maximum plant diversity, so different plants growing and a green living plant at all times if we can. So we're always feeding that soil microbiome. We're integrating the livestock into those systems as well, so that the livestock actually have a massive role to play. So when I hear about the Brumbies on your channel and that great work that you're doing, spreading awareness around that, I just think that we're missing the bigger picture of how we can engage these ruminant animals to actually regenerate landscapes. And the last thing we're doing is actually minimising harm or minimising which is a huge one, because if it's one thing we can do today, it's that we can do less damage. It's like we don't have to add anything new. There's we don't have to go out under the moonlight and cook up a magic potion in a cow horn naked. We actually just need to go out there and do less harm to the landscape.
We do. We have to because once it's gone, it's very hard to bring it back. And I think that's why I think the horses are very important. It's our heritage, and we actually, when you would most likely agree, well, I hope so anyway, that the animals rely on us basically, and if we do bad things to them, they're going to suffer. If we do good things and understand basically our history, then we will do much, much better. Tell me the difference between regenerative, organic and sustainable.
Right on. Yeah, some hot buzzwords that are getting around at the moment for sure, and can get a little bit noisy if you're trying to get through the weeds. But essentially, regenerative is a little bit more open-minded. So we're not dogmatic in the sense that we rule out tools that we can use like we do in organics. So what I like about regenerative agriculture is that we're not being completely dogmatic in the sense that if we need to, as we go through a transition from a more conventional system to a natural system, if we need to use some of the tools that are available, be it maybe a spray or something like that, that we that is going to help us get a crop off and maintain and be profitable, then we can still use that. So, you know, we're not boxing ourselves in into a system that doesn't allow all the tools in the tool shed, essentially. So while it's not necessarily organic, I mean, organic isn't infallible either. I mean, a lot of the standards in organics still allow Roundup to be sprayed in the greenhouses. So, you know, and in a lot of cases, you'll find the soil is actually producing a more nutritious food on a regenerative farm than some of the food that's coming out of an organic, certified organic system, just because they haven't been able to use all the tools available, and they're doing a lot of tillage and whatnot to sort of to keep afloat and keep a crop coming off. So regenerative is, you know, sustaining. I like to think of it, sustaining is staying the way we are. Regenerative is making the place better, making it more beautiful, making more bugs, biodiversity. We'll clean the water up, clean the air. You know, everyone loves nature in Australia. Yet, you know, just in my region here, we've cleared 18 million hectares of trees in the last, you know, since the 60s to grow wheat, essentially, and sheep. And regenerative agriculture is all about putting that nature back and also being more profitable. So I think it's just a really exciting time to be in ag.
Yeah, tell me, because again, being on the land, I know that farmers, you got to hit them on the head with the sledgehammer to get them to change direction. No, it's all right. Don't worry about that, mate. Yeah. How hard is it to convert those that would almost seem reluctant or unconvertible, if there's such a word?
Absolutely.
Sledgehammer?
Well, I think the worm is turning, Mike. It's you know, farmers are seeing the writing on the wall. I think anyone that's been, especially farming for a long time, just see, well, we're just getting screwed here. You know, we're putting more inputs in on our crop each year. It's costing more to produce a crop. We're getting paid less for our crop, and you know, we're walking away with less profit. So if you can come and tell a farmer, look, you don't need to be putting all this shit on, or if you do, you can buffer it with, for example, you know, glyphosate, the most Roundup is its shelf name. One of the most ubiquitous chemicals in the ag space and globally. Farmers can use less Roundup just by buffering it with some fulvic or humic acid, which is basically just an organic carbon. So, and same with our fertiliser. So we can simply reduce our fertiliser rates by 30-40%, and same with our Roundup applications, just by buffering with like a fulvic or humic acid. So just like a little trick like that can keep our soil a little bit healthier and help it bounce back from if we've had to, you know, get involved with one of those chemicals. So yeah, I think, and every farmer, if you're a grazier, you are now looking at holistic grazing as the norm. You know, strip grazing, you know, long rest periods, holistic management is all mainstream now. If you're just set stocking your cows nowadays, you're actually behind the eight ball. You're a dinosaur. So, I mean, there's context. It's very context specific, and that's why I don't like giving prescriptive advice, because every farm is different. Every farmer is different. So, how little or how much they are sort of engaging in these regenerative practices is completely up to them. You know, we're not here to tell people how to farm. We're here to show them some of the skills and strategies that they can use to sort of get on their way and overcome some of the hurdles that they may come up against while they're transitioning. So,
Yeah, I was actually speaking of glyphosates, which are just terrible things, and many countries have banned it. Um, Also, paraquat. I mean, the government said, be extra careful, but paraquat's a dreadful, dreadful drug, and it can do. I mean, it can kill you eventually. So I don't understand the government at all when they come to banning certain chemicals. I mean, if it's going to cause damage to you and kill you, you say no instantly. Nah, not interested, mate. Next one. And so I think government can be a very intrusive into our health, and by allowing paraquat. Paraquat is really a very, very bad drug. Just tell me one more thing. Speaking of government, because it is the season to bash government around the head, how have they been with regards to regen farming?
It's always the season for that, isn't it, Mike?
It is enjoyable.
Yeah. The government's actually been quite supportive. So you would hear a lot of the chat about carbon farming and, farmers are producing greenhouse gas emissions through their cattle farts and all this noise coming from the government, and they want to step in and be more sustainable. And to be honest, I just think that they have an obligation and a duty to assist farmers to go down this path. Because as I mentioned before, it's not just the farmland that this impacts. I think it's something like 60% of the land in this country is managed by farmers, which is a massive, massive, massive land area. If we were doing these methods over that, even 50% of that area on this continent, we would have dramatic effects on the small and large water cycle. We would change rainfall patterns in this country. We would totally change the trajectory, I believe, of being the first country to be affected by climate change and extremities of weather events. But it's that dramatic, like even 1,000 kilometre square area, if they're able to start doing some of these, keeping the green plants growing and fixing that small water cycle on their farm, they can actually start impacting the rainfall patterns in the area. So I think it's pretty cool, and governments still have a lot of stepping up to do, I believe, and a lot of listening to what farmers actually need. And I think that they are being supportive, but mainly for their own interests. It'd be really nice to see them.
Not like a politician at all. But I just think I mean, we'll have another discussion later on about their enthusiasm by 2030 to take back 30% of the land, buy it back, and then put in remove farms and stuff, and throw in a few trees. That's another one which is right up my nostrils, by the way, and reminds me, my wife said I need to cut those hairs in the nostrils. They're a bit long at the moment. That's because I'm a farmer from way back, you see, so we do that, hairy ears and hairy noses. If somebody wants to find out more about Smart Soil, look after your ears as you get older, let me tell you. How do they find out more about Smart Soil?
Nice one. So we're very active all over socials. Smart Soil EDU is our website that you can find all of our online courses with some pioneers in regenerative agriculture. We've got Dr. Judy Earle on there, who's a pasture ecologist and grazier from Coolatai, New South Wales there. We've got Colin Seiss, who's just an absolute well-renowned legend, pasture cropper. We've just teamed up with Kevin Elmy from the other side of the world, who's an agronomist and a cover cropping expert. We're actually kicking off his cover cropping cohort this morning, so we've got farmers from all around the world coming in to sit down with Kevin and have an open discussion about how we can, get cover crops in the ground, because it's a really effective way to start boosting our soil fertility. So all over social media, YouTube, we've got some great videos up there, and hopefully you'll see a bit more of us here, and really appreciate the platform, Mike, and what you guys are doing.
Thank you very much. It's very important. I keep checking the mail to see if any bottles of delicious substance from Margaret River rolls up. No, nothing. But you live in God's country. You do. You got some of the great wineries of the world there, and a great lifestyle too. And it's nice that you're doing your bit to make sure people will be able to enjoy it and enjoy it even more as time goes on. David Lewis Mackay, co-founder and director of Smart Soil, thank you very much for your time. Just about it, folks. That was really interesting too, and we'll have David on many, many, many more times too, and start collaborating in a much more meaningful way, so we can actually do filming and stuff from his operations. I think he is doing a fantastic job. Now we're just about done. I'm heading off shortly to head to the shearer to look a bit, a bit more respectable. I'm looking like I'm a hippie. Actually, not really, just the GT stripes sort of showing. We're all wondering what the weather's going to be like. Don't wonder anymore, because we have it right. And that's about it for today's show. I'm always going to go out with a particular song, Tell the Wind How Brumbies Fall. If you listen to the lyrics, you'll understand the actual passion that all of us here have towards this atrocity on Australia. It's as simple as that. And we ain't finished yet. Have a great day today. I hope it's a good one for you. We'll catch you again tomorrow morning from 7 a.m. on the eastern seaboard. I think it's 6:30 in South Australia and Northern Territory, and I think it's at 5 in the morning. A couple of people often write into us, so they're up bright and early at 5 a.m. to catch the Country Telegraph. Have a good one. Drive carefully, be safe, be kind to yourself and to your neighbours, and also to your pet cats. Tabitha, behave yourself. This is the Country Telegraph.